Hi, I'm John Mendez, and this is part 6 of our navigation series, and we're just going to look very gently at the basics of a DR, a dead reckoned position, and an EP, an estimated position. Very simply, a DR, a dead reckon, is where we look at the heading of the boat, and in this case we're going from A to B, and I've estimated that that will take about an hour, so I've plotted an hour of boat speed, which we're showing as Y, and I reckon our time frame being an hour will be Z. So if all those things were constant and we set off from A with an hour's passage, we'd end up with B with no problems. Sadly in boating it's rarely as simple as A to B. Our DR, although it sounds great in theory, is very hard in practice. It rarely tells us what we need to know. So we now need to look at the other influences, be it wind or tide, and see where that has actually taken our boat. So if we assume the hour again, we're going to draw what in this hour the tide has done. So we draw our line for tide in, and we mark it with 3 arrows to denote tide, and I'm going to call that C. And that is what the tide has done in 1 hour. It's swept our boat from our initial B over towards C, and we denote our EP with a triangle. Now if we set off at 10 o'clock, our EP at C should be at 11 o'clock, 1 hour's passage of time. So what's actually happened in our hour of passage is our boat has travelled down this line here from A to C. And you'll see that the boat is actually travelling faster over the ground than it was through the water. That's your speed through the water. The red line with 2 arrows on, our ground track, is our actual speed over the ground. And we travel a little bit faster than the actual boat. What we have to be careful of is if there's anything close to that line A to C, if we were projecting our heading, just need to make sure that we're staying safe. Now all that information in the EP where we did an hour's tide and an hour's boat speed and an hour's time is all very well where you've got good information, like if you've got the tidal atlas or tidal diamonds. However, in real life, if you're in an area where the information's a bit thin, you can find out from yourself if you've got a fixed object, because that will allow you to work out how much tide and the direction. Now I've just got a convenient fixed object, which is this buoy, which is nicely anchored to the seabed. So I've positioned myself down tide, and just by keeping the boat in the tidal stream parallel with the flow, I can work out what the bearing is. So I've got about 330 degrees. Remember it's magnetic, but that's good enough for this. And looking at that buoy, I can see we've got about half a knot of tide actually flowing. Now I'm judging that from experience, but you could also make your boat stationary next to the object, read the log, that's the speed through the water, and that should give you an indication of what flow rate we got. The nice thing with the tide is, as soon as we've got a fixed object, we can quite quickly work out its speed and direction. That's not so easy with the wind, and most motorboats don't have any wind instruments to give you its speed or direction. With a little practice you can estimate how much you think it might be pushing you off course and make an allowance for it. Of course, as a motorboater, we can point our boat in the direction we want at any time. So therefore, if we know what these influences are, we can make our passage taking account of them before we set off. So instead of ending up somewhere we don't particularly want to, we can be far more dictatorial about where we want to go. That's called a course to steer, and we'll show you how to do that next month.